Unless you muted it. Did you mute the audio? Awesome.
4, 3, 2, 1. Hey, hello everybody. Am I live? Are we live? I think we're live. I
Yeah, we're
am
live.
watching a commercial right now because I don't have a subscription to the Reaper thing. I thought I did. Now I'm on Mad Love. I don't know where the hell I am. All right, here we go. All
By
right.
the way, did you
Hey,
unmute us?
I did. Try it again. Talk.
I just want to make sure. That's all.
Yeah, yeah. So, hey, it's Bob and Julie and Bug Lips and Jason and a bunch of stuff. So, hello everybody. How you doing today? Tuesday edition of the Crow's Nest. We have done what? This is week 3 in a row, which is probably a record or a recent record. And today we have special guest sculptor Christine Van Patten. How are you doing today, Christine?
Hi, doing
Hi.
good.
And Gene is on. So Christine, I'm gonna list all the people on just to make you more nervous, okay? So there's already a ton of people on. But I have been wanting to get Christine on for quite some time. She is one of Reaper's, is it fair to say, newer sculptors, fresher sculpting blood?
I think
Um,
that's definitely fair.
yeah, I mean, you have really come out of nowhere to dominate the sculpting world. And no, but to really come on as a pretty key sculptor within the Reaper ranks. You've been doing a lot of work for them lately, right? And doing a lot of sculpting work just in general.
I did a lot of pieces for Bones 5,
Uh huh.
and I've been working a little bit with Dark Sword uh, and some Kickstarters.
You're doing a dark sword stuff, a
Yeah.
piece that we can't talk about today. That I'm super excited about. A piece that's specifically we'll tease it a little bit. It's how Jim does for everybody that knows dark sword stuff. The anthropomorphic critters, and there's the tribute critters to various pets or whatnot that may no longer be with us. You did a tribute piece for my wife's dog, who passed away. Oh, it'll be 2 years ago in January. So I'm super excited to see it. I saw you showed me your digital render, and it's just amazing. And I keep bugging Jim. It's like, when is this going to get printed? When is this going to get cast up? I want this out ASAP. So he's still in
That
the
was a
process
really
of doing
fun
that.
piece.
Yeah.
I liked
Yes.
the concept artist that Jim works for.
Yeah.
Just
Des. Yeah.
He does such a great job. Like it takes a lot of the work out of it. I'm just like, oh, okay, great. I know exactly what I'm doing.
But you tend to. I mean, you've a lot of your Reaper stuff. Is that? Did you have any? Did you get any concept art from Izzy, or were you? Is that out of your own little brain?
I did get concept art from Izzy on a few pieces.
Mm-hmm.
Um, some of them were much, much rougher, like just uh, little gesture sketches for some of
Mm-hmm.
the pirates,
Mm-hmm.
and others were more detailed pieces, like the fawn and the satyr.
Right.
Those were more like polished pieces.
No, that's cool. But let me back up a little bit. So today, like we do on the show, the main point is to have Christine on and talk to her and get learn more about Christine. But while we do this, it's like Paint Club. I'm working on Jason Weeby's Sea Dragon from Bones 5 Kickstarter, and this is what I was working on last week as well. And if you paid attention last week or even bothered to watch the show, um, I'm a little bit further along, but I'm not making the progress that I'd hoped to. A bunch of work stuff and everything came into play, and motivation and everything wasn't quite. I had to take care of a bunch of household and personal life stuff so I can free myself up to do some more painting. So one thing I really like about doing this show is it makes me dedicate at least an hour to sit down and paint. If I can't figure out any other time during the week, I at least got this hour when we're doing this show. So thanks, Christine, for jumping on and making sure I actually do this show. Because when I reach out to you and say, hey, will you come on? Then I'm kind of committed at that point.
Right.
So I'm like, I can't. You already said yes. But, guess what's coming in the mail to you? Not this guy, of course, but he's finally coming to you. So this isn't anything that's out officially. This is me just giving massive props to Christine. I have asked the sculptors that I get to know, I make requests of them, hey, can you sculpt me up for something related to Clever Crow? And I will paint. I offer to paint one for them and give them a couple copies if I get it cast up. And this is what Christine did for me. And the crazy thing was, you and I were trading Facebook messages about stuff, and you said something to the extent of, hey, I want to do, or I don't know, you said something about sculpting something for me. And I said, and I brought up the whole thing about the Clever Crow thing. And you said, what do you want? I'm like, I don't know. It's up to you. It's your idea. It's in your brain. It's something. And I think I might have said, and you correct me if I'm wrong, I might have said something about a bust. But you concept arted this, drew this up, and sculpted it probably in a day or two, right?
Yeah. By the end of the day, it was done. I did a little touch up like the next day just for printing purposes, but yeah.
This is so super cool. I think it's really awesome.
I wanted to do something for you after you surprised me by painting my little mushroom girl and giving it to me at the Kickstarter party.
See?
It was so beautiful and so special, and I was like, I really just want to do something nice back. And so it's like, what would you want? I don't know. You paint everything. What would you want?
This has such fun personality and stuff, and it kind of reminds me of, and I can't think of the cartoon back from the 50s or 60s or whatever. It's kind of got that vibe. But I painted one up, and it's in a box, and it's sitting on my wife's desk to mail. She had a bunch of other stuff to mail, and she's like, oh, I'll mail it for you. But it still hasn't hit the post office yet, but it will, and we'll get it over to you soon.
I'm excited. I painted one up for you, and I have a plinth coming from Green Stuff World. So once I get that based, it'll be headed your way.
See, you paint as well. But let's talk a little bit about, for those that don't, I mean, most people know you at this point. You've been around coming to ReaperCons. What was your first ReaperCon that you came to? Was that one of the ones at the Gun and Knife Club or something, when we were having those at that wonderful facility?
It was back at the old facility, and I want to say it was when they announced Bones 3. So it was several years ago now.
Yeah, and you had brought a bunch of traditional sculpts.
Yes, I was sculpting in Fimo and Primo back then.
And colorful Fimo and Primo, by the way. I mean,
I couldn't stick with one color.
Well, generally you see people, show up and they have their greens, right? Even if they're sculpting with Fimo, they tend to still use green or maybe gray, right? But yours were all, hence the name Rainbow Sculptor. Yours were all very colorful.
Mine were purple and pink.
And they played along with your very whimsical kind of, I don't want to say, in a way, the best word I can think of the second is kind of cartoonish style, but it's not, you're not pigeonholed in that. That's with this bust, there's a sense of caricatureness to it, right? And I like that about that, and that drew me to your mushroom people, and that's why that mushroom person that I gave you, which kind of the smaller, I don't forget its name, was just wow, this is so different, it's so unique. I want to paint this. So yeah, it kind of grabs you from that standpoint. But what I've seen you work on for Jim over at Dark Sword is, I mean, Jim is very particular, right? He knows what he wants. So for him to pick you, he knows that you can alter and be within a range of style, right?
Yeah,
That.
I mean, I have Ron to thank for that a lot because he, when I first started sculpting digitally, I sent him some pictures of stuff I had been working on, and he
Mm-hmm.
was like, "Man, this is so cool, and like it's got me so excited, but I want to see if you can do something in Reaper style because this doesn't really fit us."
Right, and so it's a little bit
Um,
more on the cartoony side, and he wanted you to
yeah, grunge it
de-cartoonify
up,
it.
Grun-
Yeah.
grunge it up.
Is that what he said, or is that just was your interpretation of what he meant?
Well, after he gave me that assignment, I decided to break down Izzy's concept art and I looked at a whole bunch of Reaper sculpts. Like obviously I have a garage full of them.
Mm-hmm.
And try to dissect, what is Reaper's style? What does that mean? How can I do that better? Um,
Oh.
breaking that down into, okay, what proportions are we working with here? What
Mm-hmm.
in drawing you would call it like a line quality.
Mm-hmm.
When you look at Izzy's stuff, everything is very like angular and sharp and it's just got like an edge to it. Everything has an edge to it. The expressions on the faces are serious and often like scowly.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting. Yeah. That's.
So so I just started like taking notes about, okay, what exactly qualifies a Reaver style, and then practiced that, and
It's
then I
it. The
did a
Reaper
piece.
style is whatever Ron likes.
Yeah, it's very true, very
Uh,
true. Which changes from day to day, right?
which it can definitely, and but he does, to his credit, I think he has a very wide range. He's not just so dialed to one specific approach. Now you mentioned about the line drawing and everything, and did you come from more of a 2D background
Oh yeah,
before you
I
started
went
sculpting?
to I went to art school at UTSA in
Mm-hmm.
San Antonio.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I was doing a bachelor's in studio art with a minor in art history.
Okay. So
But
what
my
was
main focus
studio art, for
was
those don't know what's studio art mean?
that just means drawing and painting, basically,
Okay.
like the standard traditional um, mediums.
Okay.
And they're sort of like training you to be a gallery artist,
Mm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Which is what I thought I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And I worked primarily in watercolor when I painted, and um, and then drawing, just regular pencil drawing primarily. But
Mm-hmm.
when I graduated and I started getting into the gallery scene and showing pieces and stuff, I was like, this is not, I don't want this. This is
Why
not
was
what I thought
that?
it was going to be. It was,
Was there a vibe, or what was turning you off?
I think there was just a lack of um, genuineness. Like, it was just all about, it wasn't about skill and it wasn't about style and it wasn't about, what you were trying to say or what concepts you were bringing to the conversation. It was just more, who do you know and who do they know?
Mm-hmm.
Who likes you and who doesn't?
Yep. I remember that. I remember that more from when I was in art school and stuff. And the people that could probably end up getting better grades just because they were a better bullshitter about their piece,
Exactly.
instead of actually
Exactly.
sh- demonstrating their vision in the actual piece itself. So yeah, no, I was a photography major, and it kind of turned me off for a while from it, and had to find my way back into art via more so painting. Is that so? Is that when you said, I'm leaving this and I'm going to go into more sculpting, or what took you into, I want to start sculpting little things for gaming? Does that make sense?
Yeah, well, I decided I wasn't going to do the gallery thing, but I was still pursuing watercolor
Mm-hmm.
And I was doing commission pieces mostly, portraits and stuff like that. Um, but it just sort of sucked the joy out of it for me. I
Mm-hmm.
stopped I stopped liking what I was doing.
Mm-hmm.
Which happens, I think, when you do something you love for a job, that tends to sort of take the joy out of it if you don't have the right focus.
Right.
And my husband introduced me to miniatures,
Mm-hmm.
and I
So before
started.
that, you didn't know anything about miniatures?
No, like I was a gamer and I liked D&D and stuff like that, but we never
Mm-hmm.
really played with miniatures very much when
Mm.
I played D&D.
Okay.
It was more theater of the mind type stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so I discovered miniatures, and then I was like, "Oh wow, these are really cool. Oh, this one's really cool. Oh, I really like this one." And my husband was like, "Did you know that, there's people who sculpt these and make these? Like that's a job. You could do that."
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, "What? Really?"
Kevin is kind of like your business manager, isn't he?
Yeah,
Yeah.
in a lot of ways he is.
He's a good guy. He's a good guy. But yeah, he's been. I remember him meeting you two at that ReaperCon, whichever it was, what we were talking about, and he was selling you hardcore, which I thought was really cool to have your spouse involved to that level and to be helping push you through the process, because it wasn't probably an easy thing to crack, is to crack into getting Ron to see your stuff and to be included as one of the Reaper sculptors, right? Was that
Yeah.
was that ever challenging or frustrating for you to try to get to that point?
It
Does that
was
make
very
sense?
intimidating
Yeah.
that there was it was this very elite group of professionals, and they were all a very tight, close-knit friend group, you could tell.
Mm-hmm.
And here I was, just fresh out of art school and sculpting miniatures for all of like 2 months,
Hmm.
asking to have, a seat at the table to listen and to talk. And it just
Yeah.
seemed like who was I to ask for that?
Yeah, but I mean, you went about it, if I remember. I mean, you were just asking everybody's opinion, and you were trying to get feedback on pieces. You even, I don't know. I still to this day don't understand why you asked me for feedback. But I'm always willing to give feedback. Whether it's right or wrong. Hey, if you ask me for something, sure. Yeah, this is great, kind of thing. So.
Well, I think feedback is important to get from a variety of sources, because a good piece of art is good to a number of levels, right?
Mm-hmm.
A professional can appreciate it for, its technical skill, and the average person can appreciate it because it's just really cool.
Mm-hmm.
And, maybe someone else will appreciate it because it was obvious that they had painters in mind, so it's really fun to paint. So I think it's important to sort of get feedback and listen to what everyone wants from a piece,
Mm-hmm.
so you can try to cater to as many people as you can
So your name
when you're
Rainbow
designing
Sculpt,
it.
yeah, your name Rainbow Sculptor. When I've talked to a lot of the other sculptors, and this was something in my learning process of getting to know them, and most of them, they don't think about colors when they're sculpting. They're thinking about forms, right?
Right.
Do you, coming from your 2D background, coming from your painting and watercolor background, are you thinking of these pieces in any kind of colors when you're sculpting? I know you like to use the colored clay back in the day, and I think
Yeah.
you still even digitally, like when you sculpted the crow, I think he was purple or pink initially when you were sending them to me. As I'm like, oh, that's cool. But do you think in colors when you're sculpting them?
I do. Like you said, I actually change the color of my clay when I'm sculpting to suit the mood of the piece.
Hmm.
Um, but I also now I started poly painting in ZBrush because I feel like, you can only say so much with form and shape, right?
Mm-hmm.
Composition. There's a whole nother level that gets brought to it with color, and that is the fun part about seeing how different people interpret it. But I thought it might be fun to for people to see what I had in mind, and then they can sort of take it from there, use it as
Yeah,
inspiration.
yeah, and then now I don't even get to paint anything anymore for a studio model because it's already pre-done. Thanks, I appreciate that.
No, no.
It's probably a lot faster if you do that than me taking forever to paint one sea dragon. So yeah, that's awesome. No, that's awesome. And that's kind of is that the ZBrush allow you to do that, or do you have to take that into some other application? I don't know enough about ZBrush.
No, you can do it right in ZBrush.
And so what you started off? "Well, I'm just gonna sculpt, and I'm gonna sculpt this clay, and a couple months later you've got figures, and you're like, oh, oh, they like it. Now I'm gonna try to do digital. What was the transition from hand sculpting to digital, from traditional to digital? Was that challenging for you, or was that just more just kind of picked it up?
Um, it was it was a definitive choice.
Mm-hmm.
I was always um a traditional artist, and I did some sculpting in art school, but I saw where the industry was going, and I saw what some of these artists were capable of doing digitally that would just be ridiculous for me to try to do traditionally. Um, and I just thought if I don't learn this now, I'm going to be so far behind the curve. It's going to be
Mm-hmm.
hard to catch up in the industry.
So it was a big investment to go down that road. And was there any times during
Yeah.
your learning process when it was like, crap, hope I didn't waste my money buying this stuff? Does that make sense?
It was I never had the thought that I wasted my money, but I often had the thought of, "Oh my God, this is never going to be intuitive to me. This is
uh,
never going to just work. It's always going to have to be like a thought process and looking it up and figuring out how to do it. It's never just going to be like I could do in clay. It's never going to be intuitive."
mm-hmm.
But
Did
I was wrong.
no, and it looks like it also increased your productivity. Is that fair to say?
Oh yeah. I
Yeah.
think the mushroom queen, the fungal queen that I did for Bones 3
Yeah.
took me like 3 months to sculpt in
Mm-hmm.
clay, and now I can finish a figure in 2 or 3 days.
Yeah. Or the bust, and you could concept draw and sculpt the whole thing in a day, right?
Yeah. so,
That's
so
awesome.
yeah, sometimes it's just like pieces like that that just come easily, and you already just have a vision and you're excited about it and you get in the zone and you just like work until you can't see straight.
Right. And that Fungal Queen has been super popular. I have seen that thing painted online so many times, right, in so many different ways. Does that give you like a special kind of squee? Like, oh my God, that's so awesome to see what you sculpted, painted.
So much.
Yeah.
I was so excited when I saw they had chosen it for the annual Reaper Paint
Mm-hmm.
contest thing
Mm-hmm.
on Facebook,
Yeah,
and
that's cool.
then to see everyone's interpretations, like some of them were super psychedelic, and some of them were like really dark and gooey, and I don't know, it was
Mm-hmm.
just really cool because some of those things I never would have thought of that wouldn't have even crossed my mind, but they implemented it so well.
Did that give you any other inspiration to do something different, or maybe even paint it yourself, or do something different on the next sculpt?
I think my skill level has increased so much since I did that piece
Mm-hmm.
that there's sort of like seeing all those paint jobs really made me like, oh man, I could have facilitated that so much better if I had done this. Or if
Yeah.
I had thought that somebody would do that, then I would have added this and this and this.
Uh-huh. No, I think you've mentioned that to me before. which I thought is interesting because you're still. I mean, how long have you been a dedicated sculptor? How many years
Uh,
at this point?
about a year and a half, I guess.
I mean, a year and a half. That's pretty awesome. That's pretty awesome, especially with everything you've been able to churn out and all who you're working with. That's pretty awesome. Now, you and I didn't know about this. Maybe I hadn't seen it on Facebook or whatever. You are going through a kitchen remodel as well.
Yes.
Ours is finished, but I just wanted to make sure I brought it up. I feel for you. How's that going? Has there been any major disasters or anything?
Um,
So give it a second. We're back up here in just a second.
Hmm. I
Yep.
I'm good.
There you go. Your OBS fixed itself.
Okay. Well, could they hear us the whole time, you think?
It just went out like a few seconds ago. I'm not
Oh.
entirely certain what sentence they heard last, but it's good
Yeah.
now. So
Okay. Well, I don't see that it's showing up on the little screen on my screeny thing yet. I see comments happening.
yeah, it's back.
Okay.
it's back. I see it.
Okay, cool. What was I even talking about? I'm all distracted now.
Well, it was the Volkswagen Beetle.
Oh,
You
my
were saying
friend.
something about
Yeah.
in high school.
In
High
high
school,
school,
yes.
my best friend had a Volkswagen Beetle, and we drove that thing through everything, and we would dent it up, and we would wreck it. The great thing about those is back in the day, there was all those junkyards, so we'd hop the fence, unscrew a fender from some junkyard heap bug, and liberate that fender and put it on his bug. So at one point, he had 4 different fenders of 4 different colors. But yeah,
That's
the,
great.
those cars are fun, and you just don't see many of those anymore. Which is, I don't know. Those
It, wa-
Volkswagen Bugs were a lot of fun.
you used to see a lot more of them. The other day,
Hmm.
I was just driving down a neighborhood street, and I see this dad and his little kid, who's probably like 5 or 6, sitting on the porch. And they see me drive by, and I see the dad punch the kid in the shoulder. And he's like, like punch bug. And I was just like,
Yeah,
that made my whole day. I was so happy.
yeah, yeah. We called it Slug Bug. Yeah, it was Slug Bug, and yeah, we used to always do that. And you don't get to Slug Bug people anymore. Got to come up with a new Slug Bug kind of car. You don't remember that, Justin, or are you too young?
Oh no, we absolutely did that. My uncle did
Okay.
that, of
Okay.
course.
Yeah.
But you're right. I don't see that many Volkswagens Beetles
Yeah.
these days.
Yeah. All right. So, Christine, you have 2 kids, right? Did I count them
I do.
correctly? You have 2 kids.
Yes.
Now, at my work, I work for a big corporation company, and there's been a lot of talk since COVID's been going on, and a lot of people are working from home. Daycares have shut down or whatever. The work-life balance when you're working from home, and that you can't ship your kids off to daycare necessarily anymore like you used to. How do you handle all your sculpting time? Because you've got to sit down and focus and sculpt, yet at the same time take care of family and life stuff. Does that make sense? How do you do that balance? Because
Yeah.
I think there'd be a lot of folks out there, especially our moms out there, that would be interested.
Well, last year, my daughter was not old enough to go to any sort of school or anything, so she was home with me all day.
Mm-hmm.
But my son was in like pre-K,
Mm-hmm.
so he was gone for like most of the afternoon. And that it was difficult because she is very self-sufficient, so it was kind of easy to just like set her up coloring or doing some project or something, and then just work. Um, but there is a balance there. You have to have the interaction. You want to make sure that you're giving them attention and the time and energy that they need. But like you said, you also have work to do. You have goals you have to meet, deadlines you have to meet.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and actually, there were several times, especially during the Kickstarter push, where I was doing, 10, 12-hour days every single day. I was eat, sleep, breathing, sculpting for 3 months. And there was a few times I got very overwhelmed. My family is super supportive. They were all there to help take care of the kids. But I was starting to feel very isolated, left out
Mm.
because I had to hyper focus so much on this.
Mm-hmm.
And I talked to Jason Weeby about how he did that because he did that for many years, stayed home
Mm-hmm.
with his daughters. And I was like, how do you do this? How do you juggle these things? I feel like I'm either being a terrible mom or I'm failing at my job. Um,
What do you
and
say?
he gave great advice, per usual.
Mm-hmm.
uh, take a deep breath, relax. You're making sure that they have what they need. You are there for them when they need you.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you have to prioritize you. And these 2 or 3 months are nothing in the grand scheme of things. Like,
Mm.
they're taken care of, they're fine.
Mm-hmm.
So it was just, I guess it was just comforting to hear that one, I wasn't the only one dealing with that, and
Mm-hmm.
two, that it wasn't selfish to focus on work or to hyper prioritize work for a little bit, and to just schedule time where I could sit down and have, game night, or, do a craft project with the kids or whatever, and making sure that they had something that they could look forward to where they knew they had my undivided attention for that time period.
That's cool. That's super cool. Yeah, I think we my company, for instance. I mean, I don't have any kids. I can't pretend to understand. I can try, but I still can't pretend to understand. But um, how you're being pulled, and you've got these goals, and you have these aspirations to, for you, be the best sculptor you can be, and to continue to be creative, and you have to put yourself into the piece, but also not neglect everything else that's going on. And to dip, do you find it a challenge sometimes to be able to dip in and out of that ultra focus that you need to sculpt and come back into being a mom and then dip back in? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I've found that when I do get into that hyper focus, my work suffers.
Mm.
If I just get really just enveloped in a piece and I don't put it down, I tend to overwork things, or my brain just doesn't work as efficiently.
Mm-hmm.
So really being forced to get up and go take care of something, or, talk to the
Right.
kids or get a snack, or,
Mm-hmm.
whatever it is, once an hour actually helps me, because when I sit back down and look at the piece, I'm like, oh, well, why didn't I think of this? I should have just used this.
So putting it aside for a minute and then coming back to it, you could have a fresher perspective.
Yeah. It's why a lot of people uh recommend smoke breaks, right? Get
Mm.
up every
We
hour
don't
or two
we
and
don't
go have
recommend
like a 10-minute
smoking.
smoke break. Right, no.
Yeah, but
Smoking is terrible, don't smoke. But it's but it's the same concept. Like,
yeah,
getting up and
yeah,
focusing on something else
yeah.
allows you to reapproach the problem.
Now, are you sculpting just one thing at a time, or do you have, like, it's different from painting? I'll have maybe 5 or 6 or 10 or 20 things going on at any given moment, and the reason I do that is if I may hit a wall with one of them, and then I can put it down and come back to it, and it's out there away from me, staring at me, going, "When are you going to pick me up again?" But I'm waiting for inspiration. Do you do that with any sculpting, or are you just, boom, I got to do this piece, I'm going to finish this piece?
That is something I'm learning to do
Uh-huh.
currently. I did not before. Before, I was super focused on, like, start a piece, finish it, start a piece, finish it.
Mm-hmm.
Mostly because I feel like it lingers in the back of my mind, like, oh, you have like 5 projects and you haven't finished anything.
That's a
And then
constant feeling for me. That's a constant. Yes.
you start feeling like sort of the self-doubt, like, God, I never finish anything.
Yep. I'm there all the time, just so you know. There's always these things like, yep, I should finish that one of these days. But yeah, all the time.
But
So, but
I've been working on a Kickstarter project, and doing that, if you have to wait, Ron is super responsive, right? Like you
Mm-hmm.
send Ron a message about a sculpt and he's like right back at you. But that's not always the case
Mm-hmm.
with other art directors, which I've learned.
Mm-hmm.
So if I send, some progress pictures off and I'm like, where do you want me to go from here? Or what decision do you want to make about this? And then I have to wait to hear back.
Mm-hmm.
It's useful to have another project that I can then open up and put some hours into
Mm.
while I'm waiting for a response on that one.
Now I remember at one time you let you do stuff for Reaper. Been doing some stuff for Dark Sword. Are you doing your own line of miniatures, or still thinking about that?
I am developing my own line of miniatures,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm planning on launching a Patreon probably sometime next year.
Okay.
Um,
And would
but
the Patreon be showing people how to sculpt, or would it just be in tying with your miniature line, or what would your Patreon encompass?
I want to tie it to some game mechanics
Uh huh.
and sort of release these sets every
Oh,
month.
okay.
I don't want
Oh,
to
that's
I
cool.
don't want to commit too much because we haven't figured everything out yet, but
Right.
we've set up a Discord and we're in some talks with game developers about mechanics and how to set that up. And we've been
Mm-hmm.
doing some research about Patreon um, structures and what would suit what I can do best.
Uh huh. Oh, by
Which
the
that's
way,
its own like complicated thing, right? Like
yeah,
dealing with social media and Patreon and all these other things. Like, thank God I have I have other people who know how to do this stuff.
yeah. No, and that's cool. I mean, I think the whole Patreon thing, and I've been pumping Anne's Patreon, and Rhonda just started up her own Patreon as well. The name of Patreon, when I remember hearing that, was the old school artists from back in the Renaissance and everything, and they would get
Right,
a
yeah.
patron, and that's the way they would be able to exist, right? You'd have to get a rich patron to help you, right? So you
Right.
could continue with your art because, of course, there's not enough money for as much effort that you put into it. So this is a form of that. So I like that they took the name and stuff, but it's also it's a blend with the social media community kind of thing too. So you're giving back and there's more people involved and engaged as well. So I think that's kind of cool. I think that fits within your wheelhouse, from what I can see. I
I
think you'd
do
be.
like the community aspect of it, like
Mm-hmm.
getting to share works in progress and hearing feedback and like having discussions about what people are excited about or what they found their favorite piece was or what they didn't like and why.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I
that's
I
cool.
think people often like just on that topic, people don't like to give negative feedback, right? Like they don't like to say negative things to
Mm-hmm.
you, but those are the most useful. Like that's how you grow.
No, it is, and we've mentioned that a few times. It's good to have like your core group of folks that you could send something to. Like I can send my paint job to Rhonda or Jen, and they'll just pick it apart, right? Do you
Yeah.
have folks that you go to, your sculptor friends, that you're like, tell me what you think about this, and are they giving you honest feedback on how you can learn and grow and push forward through certain
Yeah,
things? Yeah.
definitely. Um the first person to fill those shoes was Gene Van Horn. And he was
Yeah.
like, I'm here. You just tell me, like, I'll give you honest feedback if you want honest feedback.
Mm-hmm.
You just tell me, give you the double barrel and I'll give it to you. I'll rip it apart.
Yeah.
So I did that and I was constantly harassing him over email, like, what do you think of this one? Double barrel. Don't hold back. Tell me everything.
You've sent me some things on painting. So I've tried to be honest with you on that too. I mean, you're a fantastic sculptor, but your painting's no slacker either. You're wanting to win
Thank you.
some Reaper Sophies, in your painting chops too, which I think is super awesome. You're already, but you're a skater, right? You're a sculptor and a painter too, which is kind of cool. I think that's really cool. All right, so I wanted to delicately talk about you being a female sculptor, right? I'm
Delicately?
well, I don't know how else to say it. I'm a big white male. I'm goofy and it's awkward. But I would think that the sculpting world, from most of the sculptors I know Julie Guthrie, and I know of Sandra Garrity. I've never talked to her personally. I've met her once. But those are really like the only two female sculptors that I can think of off the top of my head. I mean, even all the European sculptors tend to all be male. Um,
Yeah.
did you feel any maybe unsaid, or was there any kind of obstacles or being uncomfortable outside of just trying to crack in any ways that was limiting because you were a female? Does that make sense?
Yeah. I don't I never felt that way from any of the other sculptors, any
Mm-hmm.
of the community itself. Like I never felt that from anyone directly. I think there was some personal challenge in it,
Mm-hmm.
knowing that there were so few female sculptors sort of made me want to push to be extra good just to, I don't know, just to trailblaze a little bit,
Sure.
following Julie's footsteps on that one.
Yeah. Have
Um,
you have you ever talked to Julie about that, or shared any thoughts or anything with her?
we've talked about that at ReaperCon a couple of
Mm-hmm.
times,
Mm-hmm.
and I think she did so much work. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, not for all sculpting, really, for all miniature sculpting, but
Mm-hmm.
for women in particular, that she didn't even people didn't know that she was a female for a long time when she
No,
was
we talked
sculpting.
about that on her episode. I mean, she would list Jay Guthrie,
Right.
which if you knew, you knew who it was. But initially, I didn't know I didn't know what Jay meant. Jeff or John or Joseph
Right. And
or
then the assumption would be
Justin.
male,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, exactly,
That's
exactly.
cute.
No, but no, I mean, I wanted to ask that question, and I do. I made this reference before. I do send out some requests to Rhonda and Jen Greenwald and say, hey, do you have any questions for my next guest? And I think that question, I want to say, came from Rhonda. But I was honestly thinking about it as well. But it was like, how do I, as a goofy white man, ask that question?
Well, I
So
think
hopefully it wasn't too awkward.
the other component to that is how how do you approach female characters, female miniatures as a female? And I think there's eyes on you about that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, like I said, I've never really felt any negativity from the community or anything like that, but I think there's just a sort of there's been an outside community thing about, oh, males just objectify women and they just put them in this bikini armor and blah 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 and all of those things.
Yeah.
uh, Not necessarily in the Reaper community, but just in
No.
the miniature
Yeah.
community at large.
But you've sculpted
um
some pretty hot, seductive babes.
yeah, I
So, yeah.
Ron likes to give me the sexy female assignment.
Right, right. No, and you've done a great job with them as well. I mean, even your little icon photo today. Um, your
Because
faces,
the drunken mermaid, I
yeah,
loved doing that piece.
yeah. And I really like the way you've been sculpting your eyes too. The more almond, it's from a painter standpoint. They, I really like that. That's makes my day. It kind of reminds me a little bit of Derek Schubert eyes. Um, the way you've been.
That's a big compliment.
Yeah. Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. I try not to run the bus over everybody all the time, and I tend not to run over the bus for our guests in particular. You get spared the bus treatment, but after you're on the show, you should expect more bus attacks coming your way because then you've been
Oh, I will.
indoctrinated. Yeah, yeah, totally. Oh, speaking of your fungal queen, have you been watching Reaper Errant? our D&D
Yeah.
show that's every other Friday. Um,
Oh, I someone told me that it was on there, but I didn't get to see the episode.
yeah, there's a couple episodes, and I missed not last Friday, the 2 Fridays. We do it every other Friday, and we had encountered your fungal queen, and she had sent us to hell to go on a contract kill to track down one of her former I don't know people, and we did that. But then I missed the next week, and supposedly my character ended up in nefarious ongoings with the fungal queen.
Oh,
Since I missed the week, I don't know what happened, but some kind of
well, she does
fungalitis.
have very powerful mind control powers, so
Yes, yes, and she is a very seductive, alluring sculpt. So, no,
I
that's.
I really love doing the female pieces because I think there's such a such a variety in ways that you can approach femininity and sexuality,
Mm-hmm.
and some of that can be very, quote unquote stereotypical, and some of that can be more nuanced, and some of it can, like, I think when I was doing the fungal queen, I really saw her as sort of like the mother figure.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I was thinking about the big halo of her hat, like um, those Renaissance paintings of the Virgin Mary, and how she's sort of like this matriarchal, overarching figure over this whole domain.
Mm-hmm. That's cool. I didn't
Um,
think about that. That makes sense.
and so I played with that a little bit with her body type. She has a much more like full stomach, and her chest and her arms, like everything is much more like soft and rounded and kind of motherly.
Was that
Where
sculpt your
com-
concept from the beginning, or you didn't have any art for that one?
I actually designed that piece when I was like maybe 16.
Oh wow.
It was an illustration I did, a drawing that I did, and I never saw it as a drawing. I always wished that it could be like done in 3 dimensions, but I had no
Mm-hmm.
idea how to do that at the time.
Mm-hmm.
So when I started learning how to work in clay, I was like, "Ooh, I can do this now."
Oh neat.
Um, so I went back and I had to do a little bit of redesign just for casting purposes and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But the concept remained the same.
That's interesting. And so, I mean, you mentioned the objectification of women in miniatures and stuff, but yet your pieces are very alluring, um, and you like that, and you still try to bring them some personality and everything. My wife used to be a designer, and she used to work on a beer account, and it's funny, she would bring in she would try to bring in the TNA a portion to a commercial, which for a beer commercial or a beer ad, that's what you want, but to do it in a tasteful way, if that made sense, to do it with a purpose, and to do it with that made sense, if you can do that as well. And I think I've seen your pieces have that kind of uh, uh, allure to the piece, but it's also kind of not like just slap you in the face. The Barden, just it's still that there's still some intent to it, like your dock workers from the Last Bones Kickstarter. I'm sure I've got the doxies or whatever. Does that make sense? Are you there?
Because that's what happened last time.
All right, I'm back. I'm back. So it's usually about almost the hour point when my headset gives out. Can you hear me again? You don't think they can hear us? No. Do you have an Instagram? Hey, does anybody can hear us? Say you can hear us. Because I lost everybody. I can hear you. I can hear you. Can you hear me, Justin? Hello. Yeah, that's what's important. Yeah. Yeah, they can't hear anybody else. So, note on this so everybody knows they can hear me. It's not me this time. Well, it wasn't me until Justin messed it up, but it's a Discord problem. Yeah, I can barely hear you. Talk again. Yeah. I can hear you. Can anybody still hear me? No. Uh, do do do. Do do do. I see a yep and a yes. Yeah. I can hear you. So we can hear Proctor. Can hear you, Proctor. Just you. Can hear Michael, but not Christine or Justin. And so that's a Discord problem. It's not a Michael Proctor's internet problem. Yeah. And at this point, that's just all I care about is as long as it's my internet for a change. Yeah. Yes. Did it? Oh, it was Anne's show today. So for you guys that can just hear me, so you're hanging out. Thanks for hanging on. We are painting the Sea Dragon Bones 5, and it is. I like the way it's looking so far. It's looking pretty good. Jason Weeby sculpted this. It's part of the Dark Depths expansion. And for I don't know if it's individually purchasable or not. Yeah, so it's a Discord thing. Justin's working on it, but yeah, that's too bad. It was. Yeah, that's what they're saying. Yeah, yeah. No, no, it's not. No, no, no. You want me to end stream and start it again?